In front of me right now, I have 6 AI solutions ranging from $1 AI all the way up to $1 million AI solution. And now we're gonna actually compare them. With me, I have AI expert Andrew Amann, who's built over 150 projects to help us understand, can the $1 AI actually do what the $1 million AI solution can do? Is it possible that ChatGPT, free or pro, could handle these SQL queries?
It's not possible to take ChatGPT out of the box and guardrail it so that it doesn't hallucinate.
We went very quickly from automating social media posts to fleet maintenance. What part of that is AI and what part of it is like traditional software development?
Full stack engineers are capable of doing a lot. And when you're prompting...
All right, Andrew, let's start with the $1 AI solution. This is one everyone's very familiar with. AI assistants, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc. Tell me what these can do, what they're good at, what they're bad at.
According to Sam Altman or according to what actually works?
let's say Andrew. This is Andrew's take.
So $1 means you're using about 2 days to build this because it's $20 for a ChatGPT Pro license. So I'm going to assume that you have that $20 license.
They're not on Pro yet. They're not. That's the. We'll take that up to...
Oh, you're not even on Pro?
Yeah, this is the free plan. The $1 is your internet. The internet, it costs you to use ChatGPT.
It costs you the internet of using free ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT to help you write an email. You can use ChatGPT to help you analyze a PDF or your taxes, or understand and summarize things in a very succinct way. Anything that I do outside of work, I have Gemini on my computer, which is also free for me. So let's say $1 there. I use it all the time to spot things for the kids, understand what different animals are, learn about the world around me. And then all the times I get documents, I get emails. I take that email, I press a button, and it summarizes that email for me so I understand it without reading the whole thing. I have... I'm invested in some funds. They send emails all the time. I press the button. It tells me what they did in a very quick and succinct way. I don't have to read full emails anymore. I actually never did. This actually makes sure that I see emails in more context, which helps. I'm sure me and the recipient, but that is a $1 ChatGPT. You can also, I would say a lot of people now are using it to take actions on things like comparing products, should I buy a headset or a headphone compared to this headphone. So that's the $1 solution.
Nice. And with instant checkout, that's going to be, and ads and all that, that's going to be even more common. So let's not spend a lot of time there. Let's go on to the Pro. Now, this is Claude Max. Okay. This is ChatGPT Operator. This is the $100 AI solution. They're spending $100, $200 a month. Now they have agent mode with no limitations. Tell me a little bit about what someone might be able to do with this now in a business use case as well.
Sure. So I won't get into coding because that is a whole nother angle here. But with that $20 license, $200 a year, even the $200 license, the things that you're starting able to do is like you're creating projects. You're taking information that you've gathered, whether it's, let's say family calendars. Let's say it's documents from your daughter's school. Let's say it's like the other day I was taking stats from my daughter's softball. And you compile it into a project inside of ChatGPT or Claude. You analyze it on that project itself, and then you have it do things like summarize for me every day, remind me of information, take action on that data when certain things say like specific dashboards or specific results. When those answers come up, notify me, send me an email, send me a message. And then using probably, I would say, connecting it to your Gmail, connecting it to Google Drive, connecting it to your calendar and asking questions like, hey, next week, it looks like I'm pretty busy. Can you give me 3 spots that are open? Those are the types of things I think people with $200 licenses are getting a lot of value out of. And it's very, very helpful. It's using data that's usually in your head and on a bunch of servers. And you are the connector between the servers because you know how to log into X and Y. But those two companies don't talk to each other. You're starting to use ChatGPT and the $200 license to bring in information from both places and ask a question and say, hey, how does this relate to this? And ChatGPT will analyze both and give you the answer you were looking for without actually doing the work.
Nice. Okay. That's the $100 AI solution. I've used a lot of that. Now let's go to the $1,000. Now someone's like, they're not just doing it for fun on the side. They're getting serious. We're talking a 4-figure solution. Tell me a little bit about what that might look like.
Sure. You're jumping into N8N. You're using vibe coding tools, Lovable. You're starting to analyze stuff like some dashboards that exist. I've seen some great dashboarding tools, but you're creating a workflow that you do at your office or at home and you're automating that workflow with a series of events. They're called triggers, but they're also, associated with events that occur. And then once that event occurs, you're writing if or statements. You're understanding the differentiation between something happening when it's supposed to happen and something stopping when it's not. And you're pushing a workflow through a chain of events. Very common here is marketing. Marketing would say every time I post something on LinkedIn, or every time I think of this thought, generate it for Twitter, generate it for LinkedIn in that style, generate it with the image that is different on LinkedIn than it is on Twitter, and use this N8N workflow drag and drop builder to make sure that when I add something to the input, it goes through the filtering system the same way I used to think about it, but connecting all of those apps we talked about in the $100 solution and associating that with triggers, events, and steps as if you're doing the steps yourself, but now the agent is.
Nice. I also note this as the step away from the call and response model. You are no longer in a traditional chat interface, especially one that's just available to the public. You're now in your own thing, your own prompt engineering that maybe spits out a result, like you said, every certain amount of time, every time a certain action happens, without you having to go prompt it in order to get the result.
I think the $1,000 solution also is a lot of scraping. Web scraping has become very synonymous with ChatGPT at that $200 license, and especially at the $1,000, N8N world. You're doing scraping. You're doing stuff where you used to go to a website, analyze it, pull some information from it, gather an email address. That type of scraping is becoming very common because it's possible with AI to read the content of a page and get the information out of it that's needed for your workflow. And so I think scraping is the other end of the $1,000 workflow. Nice.
Let's go up to 10 grand. Now, something I know is that people have actually hired some help. They probably aren't just doing this on their own. $10,000 on like LLM cost. It's probably getting some sort of expert in the room. Yeah. What's that 10 grand gonna get me when going out into the market?
It's almost like you're doing plumbing yourself, like in your house. And, it costs $1,000 for you to buy all the parts, maybe whatever your time is worth, and you're putting together the pipes and under your sink and you're gluing it all together. Or you're going to pay the $5,000 to $10,000 for a plumber to come over and do all of the plumbing in your house. And that's really what the $10,000 is for, is having a consultant that does this for a job, come in and sync up those workflows that we talked about in a way that has more automation, more ability to not fail because they crack and break and don't work after a period of time. And someone that does it a lot starts to learn the tricks of how to make them not break. You're paying for that resource. You're paying for that person that is tinkering all day long and getting 80% of the way there. You will not get 100% of the way there, but you will be able to do 80% of the work. And that could be 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week of savings. So it's a great place to be because I think everyone should have a $10,000 AI buddy that they can call and say, build this for me to save me 20 hours a week. Because it should, in theory, return you $10,000 by the end of the year in time.
Nice. All right, now we're going into the big investments. Now someone's serious. They're not playing around. They're not testing anymore. They're spending $100K or more on an AI solution. Tell me what that would look like. If someone's like, I'm ready, I've got the budget allocated, what would an AI solution look like at 100K?
This is when you get into true engineering. You're starting to get developers and engineers that have built products repetitively for 5 to 10 years, especially at the 100,000 range. If you're doing $50,000 builds, you can get people offshore, $50 an hour. No product manager, no project manager, just hire an engineer to go to town on building a solution that looks like it works when it's done. The scalability, the robustness, and the experience is where the $100,000 starts to come into play. How do you build a system that does not break, that handles guardrails, that understands hallucinations, that knows how to say, I don't know when it doesn't know, that can find information from your knowledge base accurately. You can add user permissions. You can start understanding not only how the AI works, but how the AI assists the other employees. So you're starting to turn it from single use to team use. And one employee is starting to inject ideas into the prompt or into the solution that is helping another employee in your company. And I guess if you wanted to build this for yourself, this is where you can have a whole family workflow or, company product where a personal product where it connects all of your calendars. It connects all of your family members. It starts figuring out where you should be at what time and reads your emails for you, right? So from a personal level, it's a lot of money to pay for something like that. But from a company level where you're spending 8 hours a day, saving 2 hours a day for 10 employees will make that money back by the end of the year.
Talk me through a specific example. We had one from fleet maintenance that
Hmm.
we actually built a solution for. Tell me what that 100K solution looked like.
Yeah, so in the six-figure range, not at 100,000, but in the low six figures, you can build a fleet maintenance database that analyzes every single time something happens in your database. So let's say a truck drives from one location to the other. That's a moment in time in which is repeatable, and it probably happens multiple times throughout a month or a year. When those routes are selected, or in a fleet maintenance standpoint, when a maintenance occurs on a specific truck, there's a timestamp of when that happened and what happened to the truck. Well, if you have 10,000 trucks constantly getting maintenance, constantly driving from certain locations to another, you start to understand what those maintenance reports look like. And did the human approve them or not? And why did they reject them when they rejected them? If you're doing 10,000 trucks a month, you're probably doing 120,000 trucks a year. That is plenty of data to realize that the new maintenance order that just came in is similar to one that's happened in the past. And if it's similar, it can be auto-approved, it can be auto-rejected, it can be auto-edited because the finance person made the same change 100 times to that same person that's making the request. You can add in oil changes, you can add in tire rotations. You can say like, hey, every time this truck comes in for a tire change, it needs an oil change 3 days later. Let's just do that now. So the decisions that the humans were making on maintenance orders, on work orders, on where trucks should be headed to, the communication between employees that were necessary can now completely be automated. And what that starts to do is unlock 90% of cost savings, which is nuts because all of that communication would take hours and hours and hours to decipher between waiting for the person to be at their desk, waiting for the maintenance person to be back in the shop, working on the car again. Maybe it's lunch break, getting auto approvals for stuff that used to take 10 minutes, an hour, 5 hours, and getting that instantaneous, go work on this thing. That is a $10 million savings.
Wow. And this is just for a six-figure solution. We're not talking about the $1 million AI solution yet.
No.
Now, something else I'm curious about is this sounds like a lot. Like we went very quickly from automating social media posts to fleet maintenance. So like what part of that is AI and what part of it is like traditional software development? And has some of that traditional software development become cheaper to assist the AI with AI?
Yeah, look, we have both teams. We have ML engineers, data scientists, AI engineers. We have specialties in large language models. We have specialties in computer vision. Full stack engineers are capable of doing a lot. And when you're prompting and when you're using the large language models, full stack engineers, a good one, is very educated on how to prompt, retrieve information back, and use the APIs of OpenAI to make the information more retrievable, better prompts, better engineered RAGs. That type of stuff is full stack engineering work, and it's not an ML data scientist. When you get into analyzing databases, understanding anomalies, making predictions, that's when you see the true, $10 million savings. So it's a mix of both. Right. Mm-hmm. And the machine learning engineers are really great at architecting for anomalies and predicting future outcomes. But on top of that, the person that's building the workhorse is the full stack engineer, and giving them the ability to tap into OpenAI, use that resource as a tool in their solution of building a product. That's when you start unlocking these $10 million savings.
Wow. So I have 6 figures investment, millions in savings. And I want to note these changes. We started out at chatbots, basic public use, doesn't know that much about me. We then went to workflows that are on no code tools, very simple. Yes. And now it seems like this next jump into the 6-figure solutions added in true software engineering, true customization of what happens where, and we're getting out of computers into like real world scenarios like fleet management, medical writing, supply chain, these types of things.
Yep.
That's amazing. Yep. All right. The big one is here, the $1 million AI solution. You've already told me I could spend 6 figures and get millions in savings. Yes. Now I'm spending millions.
Yes.
What could an AI solution possibly look like there that's different than the 6-figure?
Yeah, we have a few billion-dollar companies that have come to us and asked, can you build out a prediction model? Can you build out the analysis of snowflake data, which is massive amounts of data? And can you start running algorithms that can predict trends, that can predict anomalies across data sets that we've never been able to relate before? There are user databases that have a very unstructured, really like not well categorized structure to it. And they're asking to relate that to a database that's maybe time series, but also has no relationship in the past. And they've been unable to. If it's possible to start putting those two data sets together, you start to unlock information that's never been capable to these companies before to make predictions on what articles to write, what trends are coming, how does their finances look, What type of copper and aluminum is one project we worked on. Like, how does that market change? And can you invest in copper and aluminum based on what's happening in China and Russia? And like, those things really matter. And there are unlocking massive potential when you take data sets in Snowflake or in these massive warehouses and start to run a true machine learning engineer to do the analysis on that. On top of that, we take what we like to say as using a large language model to write SQL code. That has been an unlock for about 4 years for us. Instead of asking the large language model to read the database, we write the SQL code with rules that the large language model kind of understands, but also is trained to analyze the database in a certain way, pick out anomalies, pick out like different categories of stuff, and then take that information and use it somewhere else. But the beautiful thing about writing SQL with a large language model is that it's predictable, and the errors that can happen are like QA-able. You can go in and you can test it and you can quality check. Does this formula retrieve the information that we were thinking to retrieve when the large language model wrote that? And you can also write really complex SQL queries. And so that's really interesting when you combine predictability and then the ability to write SQL to filter a massive database down. On top of doing this daily, monthly, yearly, these billion-dollar companies that have these massive amounts of data can unlock hundreds of millions of dollars of new revenue, or in some cases, cost savings. We have one company that is going from a $10 million valuation to a $100 million valuation when we launch this product. And that is a massive jump, right? That's a $100 million change because they're able to do things that they were not able to do 5 years ago with the same data that they had 5 years ago. Wow. So that's the big one.
Wow. Okay. All right. So now let's get to this comparison, because we started with ChatGPT free. I had just enough internet to get on ChatGPT. And then we ended with what you just mentioned, something that could take you from 10 million to 100 million. It feels kind of silly to ask this question, but is it possible that ChatGPT free or pro could handle these SQL queries? I know ChatGPT can write SQL. Could I, with $1,000 solution, do what you're doing or what you're recommending with this $1 million AI solution? Can I just pay someone $10,000 and we figure it out and achieve the same result as some of the things you talked about?
If you own the company that is building the foundational model, the answer is yes. The answer is, of course, this thing that I'm building is going to solve all those problems. Of course, you don't need consultants in McKinsey and Accenture and 923. Of course, the thing that I'm building is going to solve all of those use cases we walk through, and all of those puzzle pieces that are needed are going to be easy for you, so you can get $10 million of savings when you used to get $1 of savings. So that the issue is the marketing play of the foundational models, Claude, OpenAI, even Copilot, promises the world and promises that Copilot is the answer to everything we just talked about. And it's not. It's not possible to take ChatGPT out of the box and guardrail it so that it doesn't hallucinate, to guardrail it so that it gets the right answer 9 out of 10 times, to write an SQL query that doesn't change for some random reason on the 18th time you run it. It is impossible to do true engineering. And that's what we're realizing as a society, is when you just predict the next token, you're just predicting the next token. And doing reasoning is not truly reasoning on new ideas. It's reasoning on how Substack was formatted for the last 15 years. So when a new idea enters into the ChatGPT model, it's impossible to think that that new idea can be expanded upon because it hasn't had enough test cases. It doesn't know enough about that new idea. It knows about all the old ideas. It knows about all the old code. And if you want to continue to build legacy systems and keep building websites and engineering the way we did it in the 90s and the 2000s, you can use ChatGPT and it will keep building those systems the exact same way we did in the past. But what Claude and OpenAI is pushing is this concept of it's going to be novel, it's going to be new. And one day it might be. But right now, true engineering matters. And you can only build these systems when an engineer can QA the results, tell you why it works, communicate the differences between a good code and a bad code. When it breaks, you have somebody to call. But most importantly, you're building a system that's scalable so that when it works for 10 people, it also works for 100. It doesn't just break for some unknown reason and some prompt.
Wow. If I had to put this on a graph, I think about hallucinations. As we go up this level of investment, hallucinations go down, trust goes up, scalability goes up. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, latency goes down. Right? So that's an interesting one. The more engineering you put into it right now, latency will decrease. But yeah, trust definitely is going up in the system. Hallucinations goes down in the system. But accuracy is the most important thing for a business. I always say, like with vibe coding, you can make a mistake on your startup and you could hire vibe coders all day long and build a startup. And then you launch something on a weekend and 20 users are using it and your vibe coded code breaks. Cool. Call those 20 users up and be like, I'm sorry, it'll be fixed by Monday. If you are a product manager and you decided to vibe code for your 100,000 person product that you're launched, and it's a feature inside of Spotify, and you decided to use a vibe coder to do, I don't know, the daily playlists is your job, and that breaks, and all of a sudden you get 18 daily playlists because the vibe coding didn't work. That's like, what? Almost 1 billion people on Spotify, probably. Like, that's 1 billion people that are now seeing the results of bad QA, bad engineering. And when you have to fix that, how do you go back? The code wasn't written by you. The engineers have no idea where to jump into. So you have to use the right tool. And when you use vibe coded tools for startups, great. You're testing stuff. You're going into the market. You're trying to break things to see what works and what doesn't. But as you grow up and become an adult inside of a company, and you need to actually prove that the thing works, and you need to have it robust, and you need to make sure there's a reason why you did X, Y, and Z. Scalability matters, but also like just trust in yourself and your engineers matters too. And that's where you need true engineering.
I love that. And coming down from Spotify to just like someone doing a million to 10 million, you are not at a point where you need to, or you can risk the level of hallucinations that come with a vibe coding, a ChatGPT generic, and waste time QAing that yourself. Rather build a system that gets QA'd once and then can be trusted going forward.
That's exactly right. That's engineering. You just explained what engineers have done for the last 25 years in software, right? They build systems that are like any engineer can come in on top of them and continue to build outwards and upwards. Wow. With vibe coding, you can't do that.
Wow. And I hear there's certain things that have come back around. They always say, like my grandma always would say, these kids, what they're wearing now, I used to wear back in the day. All AI has done is like brought engineering really high up. People can engineer faster. But these basic principles that you've discussed here of like knowing the value of having software is also part of the value of having AI, is building systems, not just doing a one-shot software that you use on your own.
Yes.
Especially if you're a legitimate business, not just someone tinkering around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's the goal. Engineering has been around for a long time with the way it is because it is trustworthy. You can build a Spotify and put out a product and 3 months later not even touch it and it still works. That is the beauty of why economies of scale work. Now, there will be less engineers building in Spotify in the future compared to what they have today. That is a fact. Like, that will happen. Microsoft has more revenue per employee than they've ever had before. Same with Facebook and Google. So it's a fact that like less employees can create more revenue for sure. And speeding up your development processes, speeding up how you put code out, that is fantastic. But we have a great post that our head of engineering put out, Dennis, and he analyzed 18 CTOs. And he found that if a junior developer uses AI, it takes longer to put out that product than it did if they never used AI at all. That's a telltale sign that like there's a right way to use it, there's a wrong way to use it. And people just jumping in thinking they know what they're doing, they're using it the wrong way, and it's like decreasing efficiency, which is a shame.
Well, there you have it. $1 versus $1 million AI solution. Choose what's the right starting point for you. If you're at that point where you're just starting to use AI, go play around with the $1 solutions. But if you're at that point where you're sophisticated enough that you cannot really take the risk with these hallucinations, get involved with a true 6-figure solution that can deliver millions in returns. In the description, you can drop us your idea, the project that you might be working on, and we will take a look and let you know if it's something we could help you out with. Andrew, thanks for another episode. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, Sean. And yeah, have a good day, everyone.